how do you sum up the last week of Penn State football? Is it a relief for fans that have been waiting for this moment for a long time, firing of James Franklin, who they have are convinced that was holding the program back? Is it a sad day for fans that liked Franklin and liked that he represented the program well? Is it a sad day for all of the people that are in the building whose futures are uncertain? Or is it the day that they're playing Iowa on the road at night with a freshman quarterback in tow? It all depends on where you sit. That last one, though, is a fact. Welcome to the Penn State Football Tailgate Show. I'm Thomas Frank Carr alongside Kyle Leff. I try to really, I want to sum up the moment, right? I want to give the what is the meaning of this show and the moment and this and where we are in time. And it really is. It depends on where you're sitting.
My only answer to you, T. Frank, is yes to all of it. It is everything because everyone's going through a different emotion.
It's a lot is what it's been this week. It has been a lot. Since the last time we talked to you, James Franklin has been fired. Drew Aller broke his ankle. And the program is on an entirely new trajectory. And that starts tonight. The return to normalcy, I guess you could say, as normal as you can get, is tonight, when they play the Iowa Hawkeyes at Kinnick Stadium in a blackout atmosphere. And it's going to be an interesting one because there's a lot of things, from the X's and O's on the field that are not in Penn State's favor.
Nope.
But they have the one thing, as Terry Smith said earlier this week, they have emotion.
They do.
They have a lot of it in the locker room today. So we're going to be taking you through all those things and kind of what's going on the field, the X's and O's. That's where I'm most comfortable. I would like to get back to talking about that personally, but I understand it's too big of a moment. It's too big of a thing not to address. It'd be crazy if we didn't do that. Also, Kyle here has been nominated in the head coaching search because literally anyone can be nominated. If you go on social media and you put a photo up and you say, the ghost of Vince Lombardi is a great fit for Penn State, convince me otherwise, and I can just say reports or maybe, and it's all good.
Well, I think my nomination was the best on social media, which I did to you. A Yoda, I believe, should be nominated. Led the Jedi Council for years, thousands of years, as a matter of fact.
I disagree. He also led the greatest collapse in the history of the Jedi Council.
But they had a lot of victories in there, a lot of championships won. A lot came down to him training the best of the best. He was a talent developer, and yes, at the end it came to a fiery crash and burn, which honestly feels pretty apt to what has happened in Happy Valley in terms of the emotional roller coaster everyone has been on. So I will nominate Yoda as next head coach. I thank you for the offer. Thank you for the nomination. I will decline and instead throw up my little 6 inch tall, I guess, green man voiced by Frank Oz.
I will say at least he's not quarterback because he can't see over the pocket.
No,
I don't have a problem with 5'11" quarterbacks, honestly, but 3 feet tall is a problem.
Yes. You know what I do know, T. Frank?
What's that?
Sorry, before we get to anything going on in this game.
There's a lot of stuff that I think you're going to get to here that's important tonight.
What I do know, as a matter of fact, is that we are here at Legends Restaurant and Bar at the Penn State Hotel and Conference Center, hanging out. Kyle F. Thomas Frank Carr on 99.5, 107.5 The Bus, Bigfoot Country Legends 103.7, 104.3, and streaming live on the Blue Illustrated YouTube channel. There's a lot to go up to, a lot in flux, and as you mentioned tonight, Penn State finds themselves in Kinnick Stadium, which I would say top 6 atmosphere in the Big Ten?
Yeah.
I don't know where to put it.
Yeah.
The Big Ten's got some atmospheres.
Yeah.
So
I think specifically at night and this atmosphere is, no matter when you have a night game against a big opponent, and I would almost call it a quasi-rival with Penn State and Iowa. They've been the most competitive series, I think, going back and forth over the years with the Nittany Lions, especially under James Franklin. It's a big environment tonight for the Hawkeyes.
It very much so is, and now we got to tell you, because we're inside right now. We're indoors. We're protected from weather, but the weather outside right now over in Iowa City. The game day forecast brought to you by W.R. Hickey Beer Distributor. It's going to be a very chilly 67 degrees in Iowa for this team tonight. It is
77 there.
It is 77 right now.
Wow.
And it is going to get down to the 60s. It has a chance of rain as the game goes on. So later into the night, it'll get chillier, colder. Okay. It'll be more football weather.
Yeah.
But right now, it's 77 and sunny in Iowa City.
There was earlier in the week a 52% chance of rain, and the wind is what I was told earlier, is going to be a factor, which could be a factor in this game. That's going to be part of our key matchups coming up in a little bit. But let's just talk about what this Penn State team is at this point.
Yes.
Because, like, let's say we set the stage for, I think, the emotions of the fan base. But one thing that hasn't happened during this 3-game losing streak is they haven't been blown out.
No.
This is a team that, did not look good, and it was brutal at times to watch, both offense and defense. But they lost by like a combined 8 points in the last 2 games, I think it was. And when you look at, like, they should have won those games by probably combined 30 points, they didn't get blown out. Like, they didn't give up at any point in the game. Is this the night we see, maybe just from that X's and O's perspective, it's not going to line up well, and they don't have their senior quarterback? Like, I'm curious, like, if that is what happens, or if they respond in a different way and they fight to another really close game.
The problem here is Iowa has been for, decades now, the punchline of the joke of if there's a score line that's being predicted, you always go under with Iowa because they don't score a lot.
Yeah.
They've been scoring a little bit this season so far. They've put up a little bit of points. They put up 37 against Wisconsin last week in Camp Randall, so it's not anything to laugh at. The problem is
they also got, like,
Iowa.
Wisconsin also gave them the ball in the red zone.
Yes,
Wisconsin
doesn't have a quarterback. Threw 2 interceptions, fumbled the ball all the first half, and at that point, if you fumble the ball in your own territory, if you're Iowa, you should score.
Yeah, they almost had a big man pick 6 in that game, which was
thick six.
Thick
six.
six.
A thick
That's
six.
Way better than what I was
criminal
saying.
you don't know that.
I forgot in the moment. I also, earlier this week, I called. here's where I am this week.
Oh, no.
5 things to watch for is a video I do every Friday, talking about what's coming up in the game. And we're going to talk about some of these things.
Yeah.
I've never been to the Midwest.
Ooh.
I've never been to the Midwest.
Okay.
The Cornhuskers.
Nebraska.
Yeah. Black and gold.
Iowa.
What do you think of when you think of Iowa?
I think of corn, personally.
Corn. So I was talking about Iowa in a video. I'm seeing black and gold in my head. And you know what came out of my mouth? Nebraska. Because everyone wants to know about Matt Rule this week. I was asked 1,000 times about Matt Rule. So that's where I am this week of talking about the situation. It is to this team.
Yes.
Where Penn State is really an unknown coming into this game. I think offensively, we don't know what this team is going to be. We know exactly what Iowa is going to be.
We do.
And that's what I said yesterday. That's what we're going to talk about today. If you've watched Iowa at any point in the last 20 years under Kirk Ferentz, the difference is the variety of talent that they have in terms of, like, where the talent is on the field, but the talent is coached the same. The talent has the same discipline, and they're going to react the same way to a bunch of different things.
Yes.
It's just whether or not they've gotten together the right collection to win big games, just like every other team is trying to do in the Big Ten this year, which, again, another one-loss team, Washington, went down earlier today, losing to Michigan 24-7. Matt Rule yesterday losing
to Minnesota 24-6.
I loved immediately PJ Fleck becoming the front runner.
I saw Jeff Brom.
Jeff Brom also.
Because Louisville beat Miami, number 2 in the nation.
It's a really interesting year as we are in really what is, I think, the full parity age in college football.
Yes.
Where you are having now these conferences, Oregon, UCLA are getting their feet underneath them in the Big Ten. You've got the expansion of all the Big 12 teams going to the SEC, the cannibalization of these teams that it is now a professional model. You're going to lose games.
Oh, yeah.
What you cannot do, apparently, is lose to Northwestern and UCLA.
Yeah.
But there are, like, all these teams are, 2 losses is now a normal thing for quality blue blood programs in college football.
Exactly.
And it struck me, like, throughout this week. We are in the age of transition right now. We have been, but the acceleration of it is this year. And it's a very interesting time to be looking at things because what you have known is not going to be what you know going forward.
Yes.
And how these things play out over the next 6 months, year, as NIL and the transfer portal really, I think, entrench themselves in the parity of the sport is what I'm most surprised by. I knew that big-time programs were going to take advantage of the portal.
Of course.
And they have. I did not predict smaller programs being able to find the resources they need in the portal to then be competitive year after year and raise the level of competition for the mid-teams in the conferences, which is what we are seeing.
Cough, cough, Indiana.
Exactly.
And so getting to Penn State now, of course, we don't know the future. We don't know who's going to be the coach.
Yeah.
We can tell you our thoughts, but we don't know. We are not Pat Kraft. We don't decide this thing. We are not the one who's going to hire the next head coach of Penn State. We are also not the person who's going to tell you who the next quarterback of Penn State will be next year, because Ethan Grunkemeyer could stay next year. He could leave. Jackson, everyone could literally leave or stay.
They kind of need that. They need that head coach for all of these things to actually make any sense for us to make any prognostication.
So we do not know what it looks like going forward. But as you said, what we do know is who is here right now. So the head coach is interim head coach Terry Smith.
Yep.
The starting quarterback, as of right now, is Ethan Grunkemeyer, redshirt freshman. The starting linebacker alongside Amari Campbell is Dom DeLuca, because Tony Rojas out for the season.
Yep.
We've got, of course, Drew Aller out for the season. He is on his way, by the way, to Iowa. He was photographed alongside Zane Durant's mother, I believe, on an airport on his way to Iowa to go watch the team following ankle surgery. So you love to see that, of course, as always. So they're out. James Franklin's out. But that's the only changes in terms of like the literal things that have happened.
Yeah.
But it has been a week of pure speculation.
It's been fun. We have in the preseason, we made a list of the players this team could not lose. Like just generally, you're doing preseason content. We talked about this in August or something of like critical players for the Penn State offense and defense. The only one that's left is Zakee Wheatley. The only one that is still playing right now is Zakee Wheatley, because like there were a couple of positions that were obviously thin, and then you were banking on your senior quarterback leading you to a national championship. Now your best linebacker, the guy that you couldn't afford to lose, is gone, and we've seen the devastation of the compounding effects of this on defense, and we're going to get into that later in the show. Of like, it's not just Tony Rojas; it's the problems that are cropping up because he was fixing a lot of those problems, and then Northwestern, what we saw them do against Northwestern, sometimes when you're yelling for the pivot, sometimes the pivot is worse. And I think we saw that against Northwestern. Now, on offense, there is an opportunity here, and something I want to talk about in just
positivity.
Because that's who I want to be. I want to be the positivity guy. It's been a rough year for your boy, wanting to be out here with his positive vibes. But a new quarterback, a new hope, bringing it back, might bring you the opportunity for change on offense that just from a stylistic perspective and different strengths within this particular system, I've been saying for a while, I think Ethan Grunkemeyer might fit this system a little bit better than Drew Aller. Speaking of next year, well, next year came 6 games into this particular season, and that is going to be what we talk about in our key matchup coming up next.
That it is, and we will get to the key matchups in a moment here. Of course, we are here live at Legends Restaurant and Bar, the Penn State Hotel and Conference Center. Kyle F. Thomas, Frank Carr on 99.5, 107.5 The Bus. Bigfoot Country Legends, 103.7, 104.3. Streaming live on the Blue Illustrated YouTube channel. They have drink specials, food specials, a lot of things here, so come on out. Grab some grub, grab some beverages. The game's going on at 7, so it's right at prime dinner time. We're going to be here till 5:30, so come out and join us. And then everything goes on after that from 5:30 to 7. There's trivia. There's things going on. A lot happening here on the Penn State Tailgate Show, driven by Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships. And now we head on over to none other here on the show than our open practice highlights. And you'd be intrigued to know, they're interesting open practice highlights. Done Mr. Thomas Frank Carr here himself. I'm excited to hear them. I know you are as well. And the open practice highlights are brought to you by Tri-County Tag Services.
If you're watching this on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel, these are not your weekly Penn State football practice highlights. This is your Penn State practice update on the Tailgate Show, but if you can't tell, it's a little bit awkward. There was no practice this week. Because of the firing of Penn State head coach James Franklin, the team had to rearrange its schedule and did not have enough time with an abridged Wednesday session to allow the media in to see practice. So, we're going to talk to you about what head coach Terry Smith had to say during our limited media access with interviews afterwards. As always, if you want this information in real time, subscribe to BlueWhiteIllustrated.com for just $1. You'll get access to our coaching search for a week to see all the content we're producing over on the site. Now, let's get to what Terry Smith had to say during his weekly update. It was an emotional week for the Nittany Lions, and he said practice has been a bit uneven so far.
Obviously, this is a challenging week. I think the guys are responding somewhat. We still have some work to do.
Smith went on to say that he understands that young people haven't been through something like this before. The coaching staff has to adjust quickly, but for the players, it has been an emotional process that has gone better as the week has progressed.
Like I said, each day's getting better. You know, Sunday was really traumatizing to them. Monday, they calmed down a little bit, but had some anger in them. And then yesterday was, we'll show up for practice, coach, and give you some effort. And today was, hey, we'll run a little harder today. So,
however, the line is drawn on Saturday. Terry Smith has made multiple references to the fact that he will not accept less than the absolute effort from each player that steps on the field.
One thing I won't accept is a lack of effort. And the guys know that.
So, how can they do that? After a tumultuous week, how can they go out in Iowa and put out maximum effort when emotions have been high all week long? Well, Smith says if you haven't been in football, you might not understand that this is exactly the moment when you can put out that effort.
When you grow up in the sport of football, this is the sport you're allowed to physically unleash yourself. So all your ailments in the world, you're allowed to physically punish the guy across from you, and it's okay. And this is the outlet that we're going to look for. That it's physically okay to punish the Iowa players, much like they're trying to do to us. But, you know, channel your energy in the right way, stay disciplined, and knock them off the ball every play.
That's your practice update for this week. I'm Thomas Frank Carr. More for the Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships Tailgate Show coming up next.
How are you looking at this job for a fit, and kind of what are the names that have popped out to you? I think we've all talked a little bit about Matt Rule, Marcus Freeman, Eli Drinkwitz, all these guys. I threw Freeman in there just to hear your rant on this one. But what is this job to you, and who really fits it?
I think you have to have a blend of a guy who is a supremely good football coach. Okay, that should be first and foremost. Does the guy know football? Can he coach football at a high level? It sounds so common and so commonsensical, but sometimes it's overlooked. So get me someone who does that. Get me someone who's had to do more with less before. You won't have to deal with that here, but I do want that. I want a guy that, in other words, in his career has had to evaluate his way to the top and has had to develop his way to the top, because that stuff never wears out. That stuff, it never loses its luster being able to do that. Because I think about what Texas A&M's done. Texas A&M nailed their hire with Mike Elko. Elko wasn't like the biggest flashy name, and he got hired in the same cycle as DeBoer. So anytime Bama hires a new coach, that's the spotlight. And Elko just kind of goes to A&M. Here's what A&M knew. A&M knew his reputation. A&M scouted him really well. And people who know Mike Elko know that guy is one of the best evaluators and developers of talent in the world. A&M looked at that and said, if we get those values in our building, which we didn't have under Jimbo, and then we dump a ton of money in his lap, he's going to spend it smartly, but he's going to have money to spend. I think about that kind of guy. That's why while everyone else has been talking about Rule, everyone else has been talking about Marcus Freeman, which until further notice is a pipe dream to me. I'd love to get him if you could get him, but I think it's a pipe dream. Matt Campbell's always been that guy for me. And Matt Campbell has sat there at Iowa State for a while. And if you know Matt, you know it's not an indictment. It's not for lack of offers that he sat there. He's just not been in any hurry to leave. I think there are a handful of jobs that he may entertain leaving for. I think this is probably one of them. I think about checking those boxes. Okay, that's what I want to hire. I want to take someone like that. If it's Matt Rule, like if Matt Rule fits those parameters for you, so be it. I got no problem with Matt Rule, but I want a guy who kind of blends the ability to be a big spender, but also maintains those blue collar principles of he can evaluate, they can develop, they kind of keep an edge about the program instead of this mentality that we're going to get talent merely because we're going to go outspend. I kind of also want an aura around Penn State where they don't have to match dollar for dollar. There's an attractiveness about the development you're going to get there, the experience you're going to get there, that as long as Penn State as Meemaw would say, gets within a 9-iron.
We are here live at Legends Restaurant and Bar at the Penn State Hotel and Conference Center. Kyle F. Thomas Frank Carr with you here on 99.5, 107.5 The Bus. Bigfoot Country Legends, 103.7, 104.3, and streaming live on the Blue Illustrated YouTube channel. Driven by Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships is this Penn State Tailgate Show. Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships celebrating more than 40 years of service to the community. Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships has a vehicle to fit your budget and transportation needs. Home of the $1,000 lowest price guarantee with 20 locations throughout Pennsylvania, and it is now time for our key matchups. Mr. Thomas Frank Carr, sir, the key match is brought to you by Stocker Chevrolet. What's the key to this game? Is it having Yoda tell us some words of wisdom?
No, because he's still too small to play receiver.
What about Kermit the Frog? Can he do that too? Small green guy?
Well, I'm sorry. I thought you meant Patrick Mahomes. That would be helpful.
Oh.
That'd be helpful. No, but we are going to start with the quarterback. We're pulling an audible here because I want to have some fun. Let's talk about some deep shots.
Go for it.
Okay. So I was doing some film study, watching Iowa.
A little bit.
And I noticed a lot of teams are throwing deep on Iowa. Now, it's not going great. Like, they're not completing a lot of them. But when you watch, you see, like, there are some things back there that don't look like the normal Iowa defense. So I did some investigating into the numbers to confirm or deny what I saw. Okay.
What'd you hear? What'd you see?
So 37 deep attempts this year, most in the Big Ten against. And then cornerback Deshaun Lee. I think he's number 6. He's the outside cornerback.
Okay.
145 yards allowed on deep passes. That's the most in the Big Ten.
It's not great.
Sorry, 5th most in the Big Ten.
Okay.
And his teammate T.J. Hall has been super lucky.
Ooh.
And that's the thing I've noticed is because I'm like, he's very susceptible to getting beat deep. And yet he has, I think, 1, maybe 2 at most completions against.
Okay.
He has 8 dropped or missed passes on open, deep completions this year. That is the most in the Big Ten. So if you see number 2 lined up on Devontae Ross, I'm thinking maybe they're going deep because first time starting quarterback, watching Ethan Grunkemeyer play, going back to high school. Speaking of, this is a guy who in high school, I texted some of his coaches. I'm like, this guy, he thinks he's Patrick Mahomes, doesn't he? He's a scrambler. He likes to play out of structure. He has the wherewithal to keep, even though he's scrambling, he's still running the play in front of him. He's not just running around. He doesn't not. It's not
his
that he
head is up. Looking at all times.
He's scrambling for a reason, and this is again junior and senior year of high school. But aggressive quarterback and is a very precise thrower. So he's very consistent in his mechanics, and he is very repeatable in what he does. And I just think he's got a bit of gunslinger in him. So I can see if he gets a one-on-one, he might just make the decision, I'm throwing it up. We're going to see what happens here. Now, the question is, can Penn State's receivers come down with the football?
Well, for them to come down with the football, it requires the ball being thrown to them.
Yeah.
And a lot of times this season, the balls weren't thrown to them in these positions where it was one-on-one. Before the season, we talked a lot about it, where Kyron Hudson is a really good contested catch receiver. That's kind of what he's really, really good at. Trevor Pena, really good in tight coverage. Devontae Ross can usually beat the tight coverage. So they're all pretty good at the same kinds of things in different manners. So they have to have the ball thrown to them. And so far this season, Drew Aller hadn't really done that a lot. So today might be a full 180 shift to where, as you said, he's a bit of a gunslinger. Let's say you've got Kyron Hudson deep against number 2. Let's say that happens at some point in time for some reason. Maybe he's like, I trust him. Go up and get it, Kyron Hudson. And I don't know what's going to happen because it's been a real weird year.
It's been a really weird year. The other thing is, what I've noticed about this team is that they definitely have roles within the offense. And, so there was the jump ball, the go ball, vertical guy in Kyron Hudson, but they're deep shot guy. I guess there's a difference of to me there's a difference of one-on-one versus we're going to scheme up a throw for this guy. Devontae Ross is their deep ball receiver.
He is.
So he's caught 3 passes on 5 attempts, 2 touchdowns. Kyron Hudson has 2 catches on 6 attempts for 2 touchdowns. He's got 2 for 46. It's been a very inefficient play throwing it to Kyron Hudson, while also considering it's an inefficient throw.
Yeah.
Right? So I want to like give some deference to the fact that like despite what people think, throwing 20 yards down the field accurately so that you miss the defensive back and you miss correctly to the outside or whatever it might be is actually a very hard thing to do.
It is.
But they haven't been good at it. They haven't been good at the hard thing necessarily. But I think that, that might be a way to do it because there's not a lot of other ways to beat this Iowa defense.
No.
It's interesting. I went through like a full progression while watching the Iowa defensive front.
Go for it.
And generally this Iowa team. So starting the week, I was looking at their defensive tackles, and there's one guy I'm like, that guy kind of looks like Zane Durant. Like just like looking at him on film.
Of course.
291 pounds. They're starting the nose tackles, 291
and Zane
pounds.
Durant is how many pounds?
289, 290 pounds.
Same.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah.
Very similar. And then, I don't think they have more than one starting defensive tackle that is more than 300 pounds.
Okay.
Or at least in their rotation. They are a slightly undersized unit. Of course, their defensive ends are big, beefy dudes.
Yeah. They always are for Iowa.
Right. So they have 4 guys that are good at stopping the run, but I watched games against even Rutgers and some of the other teams in the Big Ten. Big Ten teams where they were getting pushed off the ball. Double teams were moving these guys. So I'm like, okay, Penn State might have a chance if they get the right combination at right guard and they're able to run, especially with that left side. That left side has been pretty physical with Drew Shelton and Venga Ioane. The more you watch those defensive tackles, though, you realize what they are doing is they are gumming up the middle pretty well.
So they're doing their job really well.
They're doing their job fairly well. They're not, I think, as dominant as some other Iowa defensive fronts where you go, like, it's pointless to run up the middle on this team.
Yeah.
There were years where I would watch Iowa and I'd go, I don't care who's the other offensive line. This is just a waste of time. You should find a different way. And Penn State would run around the edges. They do some tosses. This team, I feel like, might goad you into running in the middle. And it might be something they're able to do. And that leads us to the guy that has to be great in this game. I don't think anyone's surprised. Katron Allen needs to be great in this game.
For those wondering at home, Iowa is 5th in the NCAA this season in run defense. They allow 79 yards on the ground per game.
Yep.
That is 5th, only behind Texas, James Madison, Missouri, and Texas Tech. In terms of yards a game in total, they are currently sitting at 8th, I believe.
Yeah.
Or 7th, in all of NCAA. So they're the 7th best defense in terms of pure yards per game they're allowing.
Yeah.
You know who's ahead of them? James Madison, already mentioned them. Missouri, we talked about them. Toledo, Oklahoma, and then 2 teams Penn State plays the next 2 games, Indiana and Ohio State.
Oh,
so,
boy.
If there was any time for Ethan Grunkemeyer to get his first reps, that's 3 of the top 10 defenses in NCAA this season.
And it's interesting. Like, it is a testament to Iowa that they are just great at defense.
Always.
Because, again, like I've pointed to some things in the secondary that I think teams have tried to take advantage of and are there on film.
Yeah.
I talk about, like, the personnel that they have up the middle. And they're still just really good at defense, and that's where I came back around looking those defensive tackles. Like, they take on double teams well. They've got good technique. They don't allow guards to get to the second level. Maybe they get moved a little bit, but they're not losing. They're not losing these blocks as much as they are just getting either stalemated or, like, you would call it a loss, but not like one that is endangering the defense, which you've seen from other teams this year.
Yes. So I'm really intrigued by how this is going to work. So you mentioned Katron. He's been running the ball really well.
Yeah.
Like, he has been, of all things you can say about this last 6 weeks for Penn State, he has been like the one shining moment, the one shining light for this team where he has played incredibly well for Penn State on the run this season. Katron has been doing it all. He's been dominant. Of course, there's been the questions about Nick Singleton, how he's run the ball. Katron has had no problems. We saw it even last week against Northwestern. He was running the ball really gosh darn well. And he played well in the game. Would you look at that? So he is the guy that we are all watching here. And he is a tough runner. He beats up the ground when he runs the ball.
Yep.
And someone in the chat named Greg mentions that Iowa's not that tough. Their defense disagrees.
Yeah.
Their defense would say otherwise.
So the thing that Katron Allen and the rest of these players are going to have to do is they're going to have to create plays above what the offense gives you.
Yeah.
That has been the reason Katron Allen is everyone's darling is because he breaks tackles.
He makes men miss immediately.
Yes. And so doing something like that, doing anybody on offense. And Terry Smith said it earlier this week, we're looking for playmakers, people that can change the game. If you can do that, we're going to put you in the game.
Yeah.
And that has been a struggle for them and this is for several years now, is the mentality to break tackles. They have not had guys that can do it consistently, and one of the guys that has is Katron Allen. Now, this is not a defense that gives up a lot of broken tackles.
No.
That's the problem, is that, again, disciplined teams don't allow yardage to just kind of leak out. It's going to have to be something they take from Iowa in this game. And that comes back to the conversation we had, about the other aspect of this that has come out this week, and Terry Smith talked about this both on Monday and then Wednesday. And I believe this is more of a philosophical thing at this point, because he mentioned it twice, more so than it is a accusation of what was happening. Where he said, one thing I promise you is we're going to play hard. The result will be the result, but you won't come in here questioning our effort. And so I do still, even though I said like what I just said, like I do still in the back of my head wonder, did Terry Smith think they weren't playing hard? Which
is a whole other discussion of culture and of the connection between the coaches and the locker room. That's a discussion that we can't speak to because we're not in there, so we don't know. But that is a really big red flag. Yeah. And that may have played a part in what has happened and transpired over the past week for Penn State. Yeah. And if that's the case, like, can I just say, if that's the case, then it's merited. The decision is merited, right? It is. And, aside from the big game record, aside from losing to Oregon, like, if the team had lost its fight and the message wasn't resonating and that's actually what happened, then okay, fair. Yeah. But for Terry Smith to also say, like, everyone was really angry that James Franklin was fired makes me, like, question that, right? Yeah. Why, if it was so important, why were you not playing hard to begin with? So anyway, that point, though, of a coach saying they're not playing hard, to me, there are certain lines when I'm watching film that I can't cross. And questioning somebody's effort, unless it's very obvious, like you take a shallow cross out of bounds, lose yards to avoid a hit, that's pretty soft. Yeah. But if you are out there and playing football, it's very hard to question effort. The worst thing is, like, I think it comes off as incompetence. Like, you're just not good enough to do the job that you're doing. And there is, I think, on the offensive side of the ball, some hope for maybe a little bit more fire from the offensive line. I think there is something to say we've seen them play better than they are now. And to give an early preview of the defensive side of the ball, I don't know that I've seen this defensive line, these particular players, because we're seeing a lot of them for the first time. I don't know that I've seen them play well. So, like, it might be what it is on the defensive side. Like, in terms of the players who we've seen who have played as an expected level or above, in terms of the above side of things, truthfully, the only one I can really think of has been Katron Allen. He's been the only one who's really been like, okay, he's playing well. He looks good. Everybody else has had flashes the first couple games with Hudson and Pena and Ross and Reynolds and the O-line, and even Aller had his moments. Like, it was just kind of all over the place. Yeah. But Katron's been the steady ship, which is, like, your key matchup being Grunkemeyer makes me think if there is any game that is going to be tough to run against, it's going to be against Iowa. Yep. But the problem is, what is the best way to support a young, new quarterback starting off? This is a thing in the NFL. This is a thing in NCAA. Doesn't matter where. It is to get a ground game going. Yep. And Katron can make men miss, but if he is running, and let's say he's not having a great game, there is one human being who can make people miss because he's just getting to where he needs to faster than everyone else can. And that's Nick Singleton. Yeah. And he's who I'm most intrigued by here. He has had six games of football.
I don't know. I don't like where you're going with this.
I don't like where I'm going with this either.
Go off, King. Let's see what you're going with this.
If there is anything that you cannot teach, it's speed.
That's correct.
And Iowa is great against the run. They're great up the middle. They're great in all these places. And what have I said all season, Mr. Thomas Frank Carcer, is to put the ball in Nick Singleton's hands in space. Give him something. If there is a day where you're getting back to basics, being like, you know what? Some of last year's game plan kind of worked in some areas. Let's just let Nick Singleton get the ball on a real quick screen. Or be like, Nick, just go out in the flat or to throw you the ball and just get the ball and go. Yeah. Just run that way. That's what, in my brain, I want to have happen. Yes, Katron is going to run the ball well.
I got some bad news for you, bud.
Uh-oh.
They've been doing that. They've been doing everything you just said. I'm like, yeah, that was the plan to begin the
But
year. That's what they were trying to do, and it was not working because everyone. Here's the thing: 4 years into his career, everybody knows that Nick Singleton is fast, and you don't want to allow him in the open field. So just as a note here of what you just talked about, and Nick Singleton struggled to break tackles. I think the last time I checked in, and it's been a while, it was at 10%. Which is like Katron Allen's was at 43%.
Not
and he
good.
was, second in the Big Ten versus, I think, second to last in the Big Ten. Iowa, they have a missed tackle rate of 22%. That's
not great.
It's okay. Like it's actually a little bit lower than I expected. Or I'm sorry, a little bit higher than I expected. But so I think that they're going to be tough to come by, those missed tackles, because Katron Allen is going to get a couple in this game. But to me, it's not as much about those guys. It's about the left side of the offensive line. If there's been one side that has responded in these situations, it's Drew Shelton, Venga Ioane, and they have been working on running behind the tight ends and tackles to the left. The problem is when you do stuff like that, you then become predictable.
Yeah.
And if everyone knows you want to run left-handed, all they have to do is align their defense to take away those gaps, take away those schemes, and now you've got to find a way to be balanced. We talk about balance in football all the time, and it can mean so many different things. Being able to run right and left, being able to throw deep and short, being able to attack the flats, attack the middle, like everywhere you need to be able to threaten. And so that has been Penn State's struggle, is they have not been able to threaten everywhere. The one guy, again, that I'll say this, my last thought here on the offense in general, and I know everyone's going to point to because he torched Iowa in 2023, I'm saying 2024. Devontae Ross has been Penn State's most consistent receiver so far this year, and they've expanded as he's gotten healthier, and they've gotten more data on the rest of their receivers. He has been the most consistent receiver. So feeding him the football as much as possible is, I think, a really important thing. And here's the problem. And this is, I want to explain what Iowa does, because Iowa doesn't play man coverage. What they do, for the most part, is they play zone coverages. But the way they play them is that they are very smart about it. You can't defend every blade of grass. So they coach to make sure their zones morph with where the receiver's going. Route matching is what it's called, pattern matching, where you're going to take away and you're going to predict where the route is going so that your zone matches up with where these guys, you predict them to be on the football field. So it may look like double coverage on Devontae Ross. It may look like double coverage on Katron Allen or Nick Singleton out of the backfield, but they're playing zone, and they're able to have it both ways a lot of times in this particular defense. The challenge is going to be to make them wrong, make them think it's one thing, and then attack the weaknesses that they're giving you. Because, again, you can't defend every blade of grass. And this is where Andy Kotelnicki, I'm going to come back to. You have to threaten the defense traditionally more in this game because they're not going to make mistakes. Iowa is not afraid of your run game. Now, if you make them afraid of your run game in this particular battle, then okay, like now it's an even playing field, and we've got a whole different conversation. But going into this game, Iowa is not going to fear the Penn State run game. They have not proven that they need to be feared. So, play action, less effective. Trick plays, less effective. Tempo in a loud environment on the road, please don't. Now that the senior quarterback is off the field, I hope that's also off the field.
I can imagine now that it is a new quarterback, a same coordinator, but he's going to change the system up a little bit, at least, you'd think, for a new rookie quarterback who, yes, has been in here. Yeah. He's played. I think, have 8 passes so far this season, so he's got some reps, but not enough to be like, okay, you know how to run this offense completely.
Yeah.
It's going to be a simplified offense for him, so it's the question of what simplifications does he make to exemplify what Ethan Grunkemeyer can do, and that's where it's like, okay, don't do the trick plays and don't do tempo. Just take those out of it.
Right.
Just do more of everything else that is easier for him to grasp.
Right.
Like,
here's the other thing. Here's the other thing that I've been thinking about.
Go for it.
Drew Aller started his sophomore year, game 1. And I know that, like, Drew Aller was being groomed for the position. Like, he was getting a lot of reps his freshman season. And this is going to be a much harder start, right?
Yeah.
This is a cold start for a guy like Ethan Grunkemeyer 6 games in. But he's also 12. How many games did they play last year?
They played 16 games last season.
And there's been 6 more games?
Yeah, so he's 22 games in.
22 games into his career. Obviously, he hasn't been playing for those, but he's been at practice for 22 games.
Yeah.
This is not like it's like a freshman that has never seen like he's never seen some of these coverages before. Ethan Grunkemeyer has been around long enough that this shouldn't be like a baby deer out there in the headlights.
He shouldn't be a baby deer, but at the same time, he's not coming in being one of these seasoned dudes. So it's going to be like you might see a jitter or two off the start.
But he should be, what I'm saying is he should be able to operate the offense, and what it is in this game is what is he comfortable with? And I asked him that earlier this week of what do you feel confident to talk to the coaches about? Here's what I like. Here's what I'd like to run, or is it more like just point and shoot, like whatever you want to run, I'll run it. And he did say like they do a good job of asking what you like and what you want to throw, and then catering to those things while also operating the offense. But you're right, it is how do you, because of the loud environment and the communication, I think the actual communication of his voice sounding different than Drew Aller's voice is the biggest thing to me.
Yes.
Of like signaling the cadence, signaling like to the offensive line, that communication, making sure that's smooth. I think that's a big aspect in this game. But for the offensive game plan, pick the plays that he likes, simplify certain things that needed to be simplified anyway because of the crowd environment. And I think that the one thing you can't do is you can't be afraid of the quarterback in any situation. No. If you are, you become very predictable on offense, and it makes it harder for that quarterback. So you do have to trust him a little bit in this game. And that's why we came out in this segment saying, like, chuck it deep. Throw it on this. A lot of people have tried it, and it is not the craziest thing in the world that as long as you can hold up, because the other thing is, like, this defense for Iowa, they're fine at rushing the passer. 8th, I think, is where they are in terms of getting pressure on the quarterback. But we've seen when they don't get pressure, Indiana, they started throwing all-out blitzes at the Indiana offense, and it led to them giving up explosive plays.
Yeah.
So you're not in a great position either way, but if you can, make them blitz you. And that's where the offensive line has to step up tonight. Like, they have to be better in pass protection because I do think if there's one thing about Ethan Grunkemeyer, there's a little bit like one of his flaws I've seen early in his career, he refuses to give up on plays. This guy will run around, scramble, make plays, get sacks, and everything in between.
Yes. And before we wrap up the segment real quick, I have one question for you, which is, I know Terry Smith talked about it. We're looking for players who are going to give effort, who are going to get involved, and we're looking at everybody on the depth chart here. Does that mean we could see other players get involved outside of just the quarterback who's brand new in terms of starting? Can we see more from Andrew Rapplier? Could we see the other receivers, whether it's more Liam Clifford, more Kobe Howard, Tyseer Denmark? Like, is there an opening up of the players that we could see? Do we have any idea of what that looks like for Penn State? Yes, we're going to get Katron. We're probably going to see Nick Singleton.
It's one of the biggest things I'm looking for in this game because he has said two things. One, I don't want to change too much because I'm still evaluating everything. Because, like, remember, he has been locked in the cornerback room. And he has been focused on those players. And I'm sure he has an understanding of the defense as a whole. Last week, A.J. Harris gave up a touchdown, and he benched him.
Yeah.
So, and Terry Smith, James Franklin has called him the ultimate truth teller in the building. He's not afraid to bench players for performance. And now that he's got control of the team, I don't know that that's going to happen coming into the game. But in the game, he has said, if you don't play hard, you will not be playing. And so, yes, if he sees something he does not like, whether it's offensive line, tight end, receiver, or even quarterback, like, they're not married to Ethan Grunkemeyer. Like, Jackson Smollett's still on the roster. He still has a pulse. And so, like, they have another option on the roster that was in a battle with him through most of the summer. And I believe that for the most part, any of these players have the opportunity to come off the field if they're not meeting what Terry Smith expects from that effort position.
Every option is on the table for Penn State is kind of what you're hinting at here, which gets me excited for what could be seen.
That's why I wanted to start with the offense, because there's I feel like there's a little bit, like, there's a flicker of hope. There's just like, maybe it won't suck.
You started with the offense, and you mentioned a lot of things that Terry Smith talked about. We've talked a little about, of course, this past week. And in the past week, there was a coach's press conference, but it wasn't just a coach's press conference. It was a bit of everything here. And we are here live at Legends Restaurant and Bar, the Penn State Hotel and Conference Center, 99.5 The Bus, 107.5 The Bus, Bigfoot Country Legends, 103.7, 104.3, Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel as well. And, of course, it is now time, Mr. Thomas Frank Carcer, to get into the Coach's Corner, which, No, it wasn't a normal coach's corner. This is a bit of an amalgamation of Pat Kraft and of interim head coach Terry Smith, brought to you here on the show by Happy Valley Adventure Bureau.
Who has time for press conferences? That's why we've set aside the most important stuff for you. It's Coach's Corner, powered by Happy Valley Adventure Bureau.
The James Franklin era is officially over in Happy Valley. Following last weekend's loss to Northwestern on homecoming at Beaver Stadium, Coach Franklin was let go. AD Pat Kraft explained part of the reason as to why the change was made halfway through the 25 Penn State football season.
At Penn State, we hold all our programs to the highest standards in our shared pursuit of excellence. My job is to evaluate everything and make hard decisions for what is in the best interest of our athletes, our program, and our department. Football is our backbone. We have invested at the highest level. With that comes high expectations. Ultimately, I believe a new leader can help us win a national championship. And now is the right time for this change.
Fans and media have been throwing out dozens of names to take the reins in Happy Valley. Names being speculated include Nebraska head coach Matt Rule, Duke head coach Manny Diaz, Indiana head coach Curt Cignetti, and dozens more. Fans and media do not, however, hire the next Penn State head coach. That job is for AD Kraft. So, what's he looking for?
We'll find a coach who can achieve excellence at the highest level, doing it with confidence and conviction. Recruiting will always be a pillar here. We want someone who will attract elite talent, retain players in the NIL era, and make Penn State a destination. This is also about the modern era of college football. Our next coach needs to be able to maximize elite level resources, attack the transfer portal, and develop at the highest level.
Interim head coach Terry Smith has the first crack at being Penn State football's 17th permanent head coach. For those uninitiated with who Terry Smith is, he gave us some info on who he is and why he bleeds blue and white.
Penn State holds a dear place in my heart. I'm a third generation Penn Stater. My dad sits up top. He's a 68 grad. I'm a 91 grad. My son's a 07 grad. My daughter graduated here recently. I call this place home. I love this place. I love the blue and the white. I'm proud to be sitting in front of you.
The other big PSU change comes at quarterback. Drew Aller is now out for the season, so the keys to the offense have been turned over to redshirt freshman Ethan Grunkemeyer. Smith gave all fans a little more insight to the player who has only thrown 13 passes to date in his young Nittany Lions career.
Yeah, we have every bit of confidence in Ethan. He's got a strong arm. He's athletic. Super smart kid. We're entrusting him. He's been thrown in there just like I've been thrown in there, so we got something in common. And, he's going to be ready. We're going to rep him all week and drill him all week and put him in class on grass. And, we're very confident we're going to have a game plan for him that fits him. Super excited to see him go out there Saturday night.
That was your Penn State Coach's Corner. More from the Tailgate Show in a moment.
You mentioned the timeline. I think that's a really important thing to get into of the coaching decision and how that lines up with the recruiting calendar. December 1st is a dead period. The early signing period is December 3rd, I believe. December 4th.
Yep.
4th. Okay. So the end of the college football season is November 30th. That feels like a very small
You are right.
window.
December 3rd. My fault.
Okay. But either way, we're talking the difference of 3 or 4 days, or 4 or 5 days. This is a very narrow window for them to land the plane perfectly for the entire calendar. And it would coincide with the end of the regular season and the start of the recruiting season. I don't know how that's possible, but how does all of this work out in your mind to help get as many of these recruits in the door as possible? Or is that not what they want because the new coach wants to have a say in what the new roster looks like?
And truthfully, it's just going to depend on who. I do feel like if it's a Matt Rule, which I know I'm reading the chat here, people seem to be very mixed on. It's possible, right? Like a 9-3 Nebraska, right? They're not in the playoff. Good enough season where you can kind of justify that hire, proving all those things. That wouldn't shock me if you could get him in right at the end of the season. Maybe even Drinkowitz or Matt Campbell, some of those guys. I think Penn State fans want to shoot higher for that, right? And if you watch Kraft's press conference, he's certainly giving off the impression that he's going to go as high as he possibly can, right? So that's
Yeah.
the interesting part here. I think no matter what, like the 2026 class is going to get stripped. What makes it difficult now is, with that early signing period, so many players that should be a Penn State caliber are going to be signed at that point. And sure, there will be a couple who hold out. Maybe even some of Penn State's current commits hold out. But a lot of them are going to be signed by that point. Now, I know fans will point to the transfer portal, which obviously it's going to be heavy. I think you're going to have a lot of outgoings and a lot of incomings.
Yep.
That's going to be January is going to be wild. Can't wait for that, T. Frank. But
I know, right?
But at the same time, you want to also, like, scholarship distribution is important. You don't want to have a situation where you're only bringing in a couple of a handful of redshirt freshmen and a handful of true freshmen, because you kind of can get in the situation, especially if a few of them transfer out down the road, where you have kind of a lost class, right? And that, especially as you're trying to build a program up into the caliber Penn State wants it, you don't want to have too many of those classes where it kind of feels like this year in some way, where you're all in on this big season, right? And you kind of you need a year or two to rebuild. Like, that's not what you want, especially when you have the expectations that I think many fans have and that Kraft is putting out there. I mean, that's the one thing I'll say about Kraft's press conference is, boy, he's aiming high. And
he's aiming high, and he's selling the hell out of the opportunity at Penn State. And this has been one of those things that I find interesting. He mentioned elite resources 2 or 3 times, and here on the show we've had the argument of, like, what is elite? You mentioned the timeline. I think that's a really important thing to get into. You mentioned the timeline. I think that's a really important thing to get into of the coaching decision.
A lot of beverages being had.
The
There's
wings,
a lot of things.
The wings smell so good.
I had some last week. They're good wings.
Oh,
I enjoy a good wing. You know that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a wing guy. So there is a lot to be had here. We're here hanging
thighs,
out.
But that's all right.
Thighs are, of course, a good call. But you know who's got big thighs? Defensive linemen. Not my best transition. I will own up to that.
Fair
one.
enough. I mean, you're not wrong.
But the defense for Penn State is where we look to next, of course. They've had probably the least change this past week of any piece of Penn State in terms of, like, human beings. The only difference is Terry Smith is now the interim head coach versus just the defensive back coach or the cornerbacks. So, like, that's it. Turner Rojas is still out. We've known that. So it's still Dom DeLuca in for him. Is there any change we're going to see this week with Jim Knowles in this defense? They have not played particularly incredibly well.
Yeah.
They've not played poorly, giving up like 500 points a game.
Yeah.
But they haven't looked like the normal Penn State defensive selves like you and I are accustomed to seeing happen in this game. So what can be expected of this defense? Of course, you mentioned Terry Smith pulled A.J. Harris, so he's a lot more comfortable pulling DBs because that's what he is doing.
Yeah.
But what does it look like for Penn State this week against Iowa, against a team where a lot of this game is going to be ground and pound? Yes, Mark Gronowski, the quarterback from South Dakota State, good quarterback, but is there a lot of talent around him at receiver? Not really. So what does it look like with this defense going up against an Iowa team who is Iowa?
The problem is, this is a better version of what they just played against Northwestern. In terms of, like, the higher ends of talent in the offensive line. The quarterback is about the same, but the running backs generally, like, these two offenses are similar. And I'm wondering, I got to do a little bit of a deeper dive because this seems to be a trend in college football right now that the dink and dunk is back.
Okay.
The short passing, I feel like every single team, and maybe it's just because it's the Big Ten, every single team, they don't take a lot of deep shots. It's all about ball control. It's all about short passing game. So under 10 yards, that means including behind the line of scrimmage. I'm not gonna make you play the game of guess the number. 84% completion percentage for Mark Gronowski.
And that's pretty high.
That's pretty good.
Could do numbers.
Yeah, and he's got a perfect rating behind the line of scrimmage, which he's got 21 screens and throws behind the line of scrimmage. Just to tell you, like, what this offense is, it's absolutely schedule-based football. They only care about conversions and getting the next down, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're not trying to hit a bunch of explosive plays in this offense. He's 1 for 9 this year on deep passes through 6 games. That's not a lot.
No.
That's not a lot.
They are going to throw the ball short and just hammer it into the offensive line, hammer the ball short, do all of that. Not a lot of deep stuff, T. Frank.
The problem is Penn State's defense has been really bad at giving up short completions.
Which is the problem.
You can do one of two things. You can have some problems against the run, but lock down everywhere else.
Yes.
Or you can stop the run and have some leaky pass defense, but you can't have both. So right now, Penn State has both. They're allowing 90% of the passes thrown under 10 yards to be completed. A lot of times defenses want that because that means you're getting a tackle. It's about the number of yards then you allow. So they're allowing about 6 yards every completion, and they're completing 90% of them. So, that's about 12 yards every pass play, So that's a first down. And they're allowing over 4 yards on the ground. That is to say, this is the hard part.
Okay.
I think Terry Smith and Jim Knowles could figure out a way to help the pass defense. But as Greg has said here, simplify the defense with Jim Knowles and let them fly. They did that. This is what I want to get to here, Greg. So Greg here on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel set me up perfectly. Penn State, their defense under Jim Knowles. I don't know that it's all that complicated necessarily, and I don't know their checks. I don't know how they adjust to formations. But in terms of the rules I've noticed and the understanding of what they're trying to do with the pattern matching and the formations and where they put players, it's not overly complicated, but it is more complicated than it was previously because they're trying to do more things. They're trying to do more coverages. They're trying to do more thinking in terms of that pattern matching we talked about earlier of predicting where the routes are going to go in zone. None of that's working right now in terms of being able to stop. So they've been – let me back up. They have been leaking run yards.
Yes.
So when you leak run yards, you have to then take more resources and throw them at the line of scrimmage because it's a numbers game if you're not getting off blocks. So when you do that, you only have a couple choices. Blitz and play zone coverages that have big holes in them behind it, or play man. So they've been playing way more man coverage than they want to. And when you play man coverage, I don't know, A.J. Harris gets beat for a touchdown because it's single coverage, and that's what you're getting. They didn't want to do that. They want to play man coverage maybe 20% of the time, maybe 17%, and they're 35% of the time right now because they have to stop the run. So now let's talk about Northwestern. They simplify things. Up front, they simplify the line of scrimmage. Zane Duran says they simplified some things, and they took away some of the, I think, the core aspects of what make this defense, and they just threw numbers at the box.
They did.
And that didn't work. It also didn't work.
So
because fundamentally, the problem is the defensive line is being blocked. So you need – they're block and tackle football, right? And if you can't get off a block, then it doesn't matter what the scheme is. The scheme, they simplified it last week so that, run blitz Dom DeLuca so that he doesn't have to take a guard on in space. It doesn't have to be 2 yards down the field. And he can use his quickness to get into the gap, take that away. They went back to more of a Manny Diaz philosophy of blitz the gaps and then fill in behind. And players like King Mack were struggling with their instincts of when to trigger and play. So it's just I don't know what necessarily it is, but it is not working because they have done the simplification and they gave up 22 points to Northwestern and couldn't get off the field. And so this is the problem, that in this game, I don't know if they can stop Iowa's offense. I don't see a solution that has presented itself so far this year. Offensive side, we've seen them play better, and they need to play better. Defensively, these defensive tackles, this particular defensive lineup, Zariah Fisher, Denai Dennis Sutton, they're not getting consistent dominant pass rush. They've been fine. And then they were fine stopping the run, and now they're decidedly not fine. And so what you have is an average defensive line, and you can't build off of that.
May I propose to you a point, a change, a thing that can be done? It was brought up in the past few weeks of the jack position in Jim Knowles' defense of a player you can kind of put in there who's a wild card, essentially. Is that a change that could be made to help benefit the run defense, especially against a team in Iowa who has 4 total passing touchdowns this season? They have their most caught receiver in terms of pure receptions is 12. The most yards they have by any receiver is 193. So there's not like they're facing, even Northwestern had players who are a threat on the outside. Iowa isn't that. Iowa's literally just they pass the ball because they need to pass the ball.
Because it's 3rd and 5 and running is a little bit ridiculous.
And Mark Gronowski can scramble. His longest carry is 13 yards this season, so it's not Iko Iamaleava where he's going to get a 60-yard carry because he wants to.
They use him in the run game.
Yes.
They'll go full wildcat with him back there, but he's not a great runner. It's effective by numbers.
So can you, in essence, not sell out to the run, but put an extra man, whether it's that jack position, an extra guy to be there, and say to your DBs, like, they're probably not going to try you over the top, but, like, if they do, you better not get beat. And, like, really kind of lean, like, I know they sold out a lot last week.
Right.
Is there a way that Penn State can lean into it without just selling out the whole kit and caboodle?
The problem is who's going to be the jack linebacker? Who's going to be the player?
I ask you, sir.
Yeah.
Who would be the jack? The players we mentioned so far, I know we've talked a lot about, like, Chaz Coleman as a possibility. Like, who is it? If Jim Knowles, he's talked about it, it's something he's got in his back pocket, but who is in his back pocket is my question.
So the guy that we saw do it for one play this year, which feels more like a mirage than anything at this point, is Chaz Coleman. He played 4 snaps last week. So I don't know, like, what's the situation there with Chaz Coleman. Is that we're not playing him because he wasn't playing well? He missed some tackles. He had some contain issues against UCLA. I could see that being a reason he was benched. But also, like, is he banged up? I don't know. Like, this is part of the situation where they don't like to tell us a lot of these things. I don't believe he was on the availability report. So I imagine, like, they just it's gotten too much for the freshman defensive end. So are you going to put more on his plate? The only other player that makes sense to me is Keon Wiley. A guy that they think is strong enough to play on the line of scrimmage, like grabbing tight ends and holding the point of attack, almost like a defensive end. He was a defensive end in high school. He's a really strong athlete. He was one of their guys in the weight room that really stands out. That'd be the other guy, I think, because I don't want to put Zariah Fisher or Denai Dennis Sutton in coverage. Like, I don't.
It's not what they're good at.
Part of it is you do have to play in coverage. And at that point, what you're doing is you're putting him at Mike linebacker, but you're having Amari Campbell, your Mike linebacker, then playing out in probably as the Sam, out to the field.
Yeah.
And so there are some things that don't make a lot of sense from that perspective, and I don't. It's something that at a certain point I would have ripped the Band-Aid off and tried to do it personally in the last couple of weeks, but they haven't. So I don't know. I don't know that it is in this situation either. But it would be a great opportunity because if there's one thing, we haven't even talked about the Iowa offensive line, which is the biggest problem in this game.
The best offensive line in all of college football?
They are one of the best offensive lines in college football. I haven't watched them all, but they are very good. And
Cam Jones, the center, is like the highest ranked player with PFF or something crazy. It's oof.
The left guard is also like really good. The right tackle, those are the 3 guys I think stand out among this group. But the thing is, none of them are like huge.
They're not Vega.
Right. So they've had some really like uniquely talented offensive linemen over the years that have been standouts. So they go, well, that's obviously a first-round draft pick. All their tackles are guards in the NFL, but they're all going to be maybe first-round draft pick guards in the NFL. They're physical. They're all 6'5".
Yeah.
They're all 310, and they all can run, and they're maulers. So a team that is struggling to stop the run versus a team that only wants to run the football. If they could go 70 run plays tonight, I bet you Iowa would want to go 70 run plays tonight.
They are going to run it 70 times.
It's a really bad matchup, and this is where I don't know. Like the one thing I have seen them struggle with, I have seen them struggle with odd fronts, meaning a nose tackle like a 3-4 defense. Indiana and Iowa State. Now those are 2 good defensive teams as well. Like Indiana's turnaround, we've talked about their offense, but their defensive turnaround has been a big deal. So I don't know that Penn State has that in them, but if there was a week to do that, because when you do what you have seen at Oklahoma State is they would pivot to an odd front when they use that linebacker position. I highly doubt that they would do that. Now, one of the people who was most like stick with it and get better is James Franklin. James Franklin, I don't know if you know this or not, is no longer with the team.
He isn't? Since when?
So if there was an opportunity to be like, okay, we're trying something new. We're going to do something very different. Maybe this is the week where they would do that. There is a significant amount of, I don't know what Terry Smith is like as a head coach. I've never, like the last time he was a head coach, he was in the Whippeal in Pittsburgh. So I would like to see it. I'd like to see them try something because I do think for that run defense, if it's not effort, And again, I just see them getting beat. And I've never played football in college. There's one line I won't cross is to question somebody's effort if you play, especially defensive tackle. That looks really hard.
Yeah.
But if Terry Smith has decided it's not effort, then you need to do something radically tactical to change things up. And so I think that's a fair question to ask.
It is. And what I will not ask question-wise is if we're going to break, because we are going to a break here on the Penn State Tailgate Show, driven by Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships here on 99.5, 107.5 The Bus, Bigfoot Country Legends, 103.7, 104.3, streaming live on the Blue Illustrated YouTube channel, live at Legends Restaurant and Bar at the Penn State Hotel and Conference Center. And now coming on up during the break, we got This Week in Penn State Sports, brought to you by Miller's Hawkeyes.
Have you heard of Wave Fruit Farm? It's this
It's more than just football at Penn State. Here's This Week in Penn State Sports, brought to you by Miller's Hawkeyes.
Penn State men's hockey is racking up wins and accolades. Before the team takes the second leg of their homestand against LIU tonight at 6 p.m., the team celebrated some of its stars. Sophomore Charlie Serrato joined teammates Aiden Fink and Matt Gadaski as 3 of the first 10 players announced for the U.S. Collegiate Select Team ahead of the 2025 Spengler Cup. The Cup takes place after Christmas in 2025. Women's volleyball got back to their winning ways, beating Maryland, 7th-ranked Wisconsin, and Northwestern within the past 2 weeks. Katie Schumacher-Colley's crew was on their Pacific Northwest tour, having played the Washington Huskies last night before tonight's matchup against the Oregon Ducks. Penn State men's basketball held their media days for this week ahead of the team's first exhibition game against Dayton on Sunday. Mike Rhodes' crew was predicted to finish dead last and 18th in preseason media polls. Rhodes and co. feel more confident in the team than most, with true freshman top recruit Caden Mingo set to lead the charge. The first season game for the Nittany Lions is on November 3rd against Fairfield in the Bryce Jordan Center. Former Penn State tight end Pat Fryermuth had himself a big Thursday night showing with a 5-catch, 111-yard, and 2-touchdown display against Cincinnati Bengals. The Steelers lost the game 33-31, even with Fryermuth's 68-yard touchdown grab. Muth joined Penn Staters in celebrating a Bengal, however, as former Penn State tight end Mike Gesicki and his wife Haley announced the birth of their third child, Cooper Cameron Gesicki. That was This Week in Penn State Sports. Back to the Tailgate Show in a moment.
Have you heard of Wave Fruit Farm? It's this great farm market bakery and cafe. You can shop with them either at their farm in Port Matilda or downtown State College.
No way.
Yes, Wave Fruit Farm. They have all sorts of seasonal fruits and veggies.
Way cool.
No, Wave Fruit Farm. But anyway, you should visit their bakery and cafe. They serve amazing food all day.
Way.
Fruit Farm.
I think that is the needle that Pat Kraft and his inner circle, who's going to help him make this decision, will have to navigate. Personal opinions, you look at the signing day is for this class. Keep in mind that guys don't have to sign that day. I'm very curious to see how this early signing day goes. It has become the national signing day, obviously, the one that used to be in February. The new one, and for years it's been the way, has been the actual signing day. But will that be the case this year? I think we're looking after a pretty stable coaching carousel in 2024. I think we are looking at a very unstable one. Obviously, we have coaches out at UCLA, at Virginia Tech, at Penn State, at Arkansas, at Oregon State. More are coming, obviously. This isn't the end of the road when it comes to coaches being fired in season. And so I think it's going to be a very interesting signing day for a lot of schools. Obviously, your schools that have stability will be able to sign their guys and take on as many of the uncommitted guys that want to come to them as possible. But I think a lot of schools are going to be doing work in the February portion of the recruiting calendar that's become almost an afterthought. So we'll see if that ends up working out that way. But all told, I think you have to get the guy right for the portal, T. Frank. I don't want to dismiss the high school portion of this, but I think there's ways around it that I just outlined. You got to be right for the portal. I don't see any way that you can wait till December 28th or 29th or whatever it may be to make a call. So will that possibly take the candidates
especially because that's what Pat Kraft was emphasizing, right? This is the conversation being about the portal and being aggressive, and then, missing that window this year to make dynamic changes and hire a coach and have him bring in personnel that he wants. All that has to happen within a timely order. And having drawing this out past late November feels like a very precarious situation. By the way, is the portal window changing this year or is it changing next year? Because if the portal window then happens in January, then this changes a little bit.
Yeah, important context. I wrote about this on Sunday over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. But keep in mind that as only the NCAA could do, it adopted new transfer portal rules that changes the game for schools when they fire a coach and as it relates to the portal. So UCLA and Virginia Tech fired their head coaches before the transfer portal rules were changed. So their players did have 30 days to go into the transfer portal.
On 99.5, 107.5 The Bus, Bigfoot Country Legends, 103.7, 104.3, and streaming live on the Blue Illustrated YouTube channel. Kyle F., Thomas Frank Carr, and the Penn State Tailgate Show, driven by Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships. Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships, celebrating more than 40 years of service to the community. Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships have a vehicle to fit your budget and transportation needs. Home with a $1,000 lowest price guarantee. With 20 locations throughout Pennsylvania, it is now time to go around the Big Ten, and we're going right first to Iowa City, where the availability report is out right now. Mr. Thomas Frank Carr, sir. Drew Aller is out for the game. Tony Rojas is out for the season as well.
Yeah.
Who else is out?
Yeah, so the big one here that is coming up here late in the week is Vega Ioane is out. So the starting left guard, Penn State's best offensive lineman this year, is now out of the game. That is not great. Also, the notable ones here, Jalen Harvey also out. So Penn State's depth, which was down to just a couple of defensive ends to start with, is now back to having critical levels of depth issues, which means without, let's start on the offensive line with Vega Ioane. TJ Shanahan is technically the backup left guard.
Okay.
Because Cooper Cousins, when they go through their two deep, usually he's on the right side.
Okay.
So that's where he's been, and that's kind of. But we haven't seen them do that because realistically, Vega is the starter on the left side.
He's fine.
And then the next best available guard goes in on the other side. It's not locked into one side or the other. So now it should say Anthony Donko is off the availability report. So whatever they want to do on the right side, whatever they think the best combination is there, they can do that. But on the left side, most likely it's TJ Shanahan. So somebody that has been playing the last few weeks, he'll now just bump over to the left side. But what we talked about is they had an advantage over there of like those two, the left tackle and the left guard. The combination of those two had been generating movement up front. And now you don't have that.
Yes.
And so it's back to the significant part of their run game last week was about that left side of the line. Even going back to UCLA, they had been going all in on putting two tight ends over there and doing man blocking straight ahead, burly man football.
Yeah.
Now you have a guy that you said, that the strength staff said, we want to give him a year to remake his body and let him, develop in the strength program before he plays.
Yes.
And now he's playing and starting. So it's not great.
No.
It's not great. And then on the defensive end, on the defensive side, probably going to see a little bit more of some of those young freshman defensive ends. Chaz Coleman is obviously the number one player that comes to mind. You're going to see more of him today.
Yes, it is.
Sorry, the name came to me. Ivan Kamaju,
yes.
Number 99. I kept wanting to say Yetur Gross-Matos because that was the last guy that wore 99 for 4 years. Yeah, they'd be great if they had him, but Ivan Kamaju is the other guy that is going to be most likely playing more this game.
The best way to describe it is when it rains, it pours.
Yeah.
Couldn't get any worse, right? Well, we head over now to going around the Big Ten, around the nation, other scores going on around the Big Ten, brought to you by Valley View Retirement Community. The games going on right now in the Big Ten, games that have wrapped on up, of course, last night. Minnesota wins 24-6 over number 25. Nebraska, both corn, as we've discussed, corn states in our heads. And Nebraska did not play very well. They scored 6 points on 2 field goals. Then you head to games that have wrapped on up. Michigan won 24-7 over Washington. Games going on right now. Northwestern is up 19-zip over Purdue. Preston Stone has 2 touchdown passes on the day. Ohio State's up 17-zip on Wisconsin at half. Julian Sayin 23 for 26, 235 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. Cardinal Tate has both touchdowns, so a hot start for them. And Indiana's up 21-10 over Michigan State in a game that is currently delayed at halftime.
Okay.
So I don't know what the deal going on there is.
Well, clearly there's a big storm coming through the Midwest because that was predicted for this game, but it seems to be coming through a little bit earlier today.
It has found its way to Bloomington, it seems, where Indiana is up 21-10 right now. Games going on later tonight. At 6:30, Oregon and Rutgers kick on off, so that's in a little while. In Piscataway, Maryland is in Pasadena at UCLA. USC is at Notre Dame in a top 20 matchup there, so that is the big one to watch tonight. Going on the exact same time this game is, both of them on Peacock simultaneously, one at 7, one at 7:30. And that was us going around the Big Ten. Mr. Thomas Frank Carcer, though, the big news you mentioned, Vega Ioane out for this game.
Yep.
So what does Penn State's offense look like with Jay Shanahan starting presumably at that left guard spot? The entire discussion of the offense was kind of like they're going to run the ball to the left a lot.
Yeah.
And now everything we said about an hour ago is gone.
Yeah. So that was always going to be tough anyway. So first off, people are asking here in the chat, like, what's the game plan? And I believe it's going to be T.J. Shanahan on the left, but it could be Cooper Cousins. He was week to week. He was on the availability report last week. Now he isn't. So that is the question. And our guys at the stadium over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, they're going to have that information for you that we don't have here. So if you go to BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, sign up for $1, you get access to our premium content, including our pregame threads, where they're giving you the information of what they see on the field. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah.
Like, that will give you the real information right now. I'm going to log off once we're done with the show, and I'm going to find out myself. So the biggest problem to me is not in the run game. It is in the passing game, because Venge has been the most consistent of the linemen in pass protection. And that is a big link to take out, because he's the left guard. It's on the blind side of the quarterback. And now you're entrusting Shanahan, who's been, he's started in the Big 12 and in the Big 10 now.
And he's starting to get gameplay slowly.
Right. And so he should be fine. But we're not talking about a guy that was great in pass protection so far. And then, the question, maybe they move Anthony Donko over there. That's the other thing, is like they can move Anthony Donko to that side. He started his career on the left side. He did start as a left guard. I don't know. That's what they're going to have to decide this week, in the next couple of hours, how they want to fill that out. But you now have a true weak link in the passing game, because you have removed your strongest pass blocker. And having a consistent 5 up front, in the noise, in that environment, you are now just introducing more variables, more false starts, more miscommunications, because you've removed your most experienced and best offensive lineman. In pass protection, I think it's the biggest thing, but obviously run game is going to be a huge issue as well.
So it now means there's one more question mark, and it's a very large, gigantic one on the offensive line. And as you said, they were going to run the ball to the left side, and because that was the consistent piece that they've had all season for Penn State, is everything else, if it wasn't working, at least Katron Allen, run left. There, Drew Shelton, Vega Ioane.
You've got a tendency, you've got a strength there, yeah.
At least you can trust that, it's at least not going to bring you back 10 yards.
Yeah.
And now, all of a sudden, as you mentioned, there's a question mark at the left guard spot, so then do they not run left as much?
I don't know, man.
We're throwing our arms up here. We don't know.
Here's the problem. Here's what I'm frustrated about. Is last year, the strength of the run game was the right side. It was their right guard, Sal Wormley, right tackle, Nolan Rucci. They did a great job of generating power and movement in the run game, especially Rucci was really good in the run game. And, pass blocking was a bit of a nightmare, and it was a bit of a, hold on to the sides of your seat sort of situation.
But run blocking, great.
But run blocking, he would get into guys, and he would move them because, despite his size, he's got decent pad level for being 6'8". But he has not been a good run blocker this year, from, a mental aspect or from a physical aspect of, moving guys consistently. And so, I it's very frustrating. I don't know, is that a Terry Smith magic waves his new head coaching
wand
over everything? I was trying to not say wand or magic pixie dust. I was trying to come up with something better, and I just
lightsaber. We've been saying Star Wars all day.
Yeah. So he if he can just can he bring something better out of those guys on the right side? Because Anthony Donko, coming back from an injury, I think clearly has been not the same guy.
No.
And then you look at Nolan Rucci and didn't get into the weight room this offseason because he was recovering from an injury, was not a part of spring football. And these offseason compounding issues are showing up on the field. But they aren't so far away from what they were last year as people that they should be terrible. And so I don't know if this is the game to be the right side needs to step up. But the right side of the offensive line needs to step up in this game.
It does. And you know what? Why not this game? Why not have, if everyone knows and they've been predicting they're going to the left side and running the ball off the left side, why not beforehand have already said we're going to run the ball more to the right, and now all of a sudden you got to fully flip that and be TJ Shanahan, like, now we need to at least force it so we can alleviate the pressure on Shanahan a little more, filling in for Vega Ioane, where all of a sudden you mentioned communication's an issue. Like, everything becomes a discussion point all of a sudden on the offensive line when it wasn't.
This team needs to get back to dictating something to the other team, whether it's offense or defense. On defense, the offenses are dictating that they will run the football and they will complete short passes, and Penn State is not putting any pressure on them to change that up because of all the things we talked about. On offense, the offense is not dictating that, you know we're going to run to the left, we're going to do it, it's going to be successful anyway, or vice versa. Like, we're just going to run wherever we want, and we're going to be good at it. They're not dictating any pressure on the outside with the receivers consistently getting the ball out in space and backing off defenses from taking away the run game. In the run game, they are not dictating that you have to bring a guy into the box if you don't want to. They're in 3rd and long too much. They are just not dictating to the other team, this is how this is going to be. So they need to find somebody or something on either side of the ball that Iowa can't handle. We've talked about this the opposite way for like 5 games now of like Penn State can't handle this, or Penn State struggles with this, or Penn State struggles with that. I mean, it is indicative of a team that is 3-3. It is what it is, but that is the problem. Penn State cannot, in any scheme or any personnel package, say this is what we're going to do, and you cannot stop it. Or if you do, you're gonna use so much of your effort to stop it that it's going to create opportunities for other people elsewhere on the field. That just hasn't happened. And I don't know how it's going to happen tonight, but that is the thing that has to happen to take the pressure off your redshirt freshman quarterback starting a night game in at least only a breezy Iowa, not a full-on storm, it sounds like. It's going to be a little bit better.
Yes. Well, we're going to give you our thoughts and our predictions on what might happen in Iowa City coming up here on the Penn State Tailgate Show, driven by Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships on 99.5, 107.5 The Bus, Bigfoot Country Legends, 103.7 and 104.3, and streaming live on the Blue Illustrated YouTube channel. When we get back, it's time for our predictions.
What sucks is, like, I could see a better effort in a lot of ways, but Grunk's is in a lot of ways a very, very difficult situation.
Yeah. So let's get into it. Let's talk about what we see coming in this game. So give me your thoughts on how this plays out.
That's kind of exactly how I just laid it out. I got to be honest with you, T. Frank, is that I do think we'll see some more inspiration. I can see the defense playing better. I do. I think obviously Iowa's put up some points against some mixed teams. They didn't really do a whole lot against Iowa State. And who was it before? Who they played? Was it USC they play, or who was the Big Ten team they lost to?
Rutgers?
No, they didn't.
Anyway,
they
played Rutgers. I forget.
Yeah, long story. Like the 2 games that they did that really matter, they haven't done a whole lot offensively. Indiana, though. Indiana State. So I wouldn't be shocked if Penn State's able to hold them to 20-ish. I do believe that there's something still in this defense. But, like, can Penn State score 21 points in this game? In shitty weather conditions and a brand new quarterback and an inconsistent running game, and maybe they'll bring in some freshman wide receivers, or Luke Reynolds has a great game or something like that. But, like, there's just so many questions offensively, starting with the fact that Grunk's played 39 snaps. It's hard for me to predict Penn State's going to outscore Iowa in this game. And so, yeah, I mean, that's kind of where we're at. I went with, I think, 27-17, I believe. What did I go with? 27-20. Okay. And that's just kind of how I see it. It's Penn State might be able to stick around for a little while, but man, it's hard for me to see Grunk not turn the ball over once or twice. It's hard for me to see Nick Singleton flipping this switch that we just haven't seen yet in any game, really. K-Tron will get his yards, sure, but against an Iowa defensive front that's going to be sound, as you always bring up. You know, can you expect K-Tron to average 6 yards per carry? I don't think you can.
Yeah, and that's where they've needed play above expectation in this entire season. It's funny because, like, I said this on the show yesterday, where I immediately go to who's the best team that Iowa's played, and I'll watch that for comparison to Penn State. And maybe from a talent perspective, sure, but not from an execution perspective. And I was watching Indiana, and just the fact that they broke tackles, and the fact that you got a guy one-on-one in space, and it wasn't an immediate, like, you fall forward for a yard. They were able to put players in space. And I'll give Andy Kotelnicki credit of, like, when he's put players in space, they haven't rewarded him with a big play outside of structure. And so a lot of the frustration about Andy Kotelnicki's offense has been constrained by the fact that only certain plays are working, and the narrower you get, the more tunnel vision your offense gets, the more you're putting guys in a worse situation because schematically other things aren't working. And, like, if the players make the plays, then there's less consternation about, like, the plays that aren't working, because the ones that you do have, catching third downs and extending drives.
Kyle F. Thomas and Carr with you here at Legends Restaurant and Bar at the Penn State Hotel and Conference Center. We have been for the past hour and a half. It is now time to wrap up and give you our predictions. So, Mr. Thomas Frank Carr here on the Blue Illustrated YouTube channel, 99.5, 107.5 The Bus, Bigfoot Country Legends, 103.7, 104.3. It's time for those predictions brought to you by Metzler Forest Products Landscape Center. I didn't have a prediction written down until 2 minutes ago.
This is your thing. You are like the kid that comes into class and you're like, oh, I forgot to do my homework, and then you just scribble things down.
But generally I go off of energy, and I don't know what the energy is anymore because of this past week. So I don't know where to go. So where are you going with your prediction? Let me hear.
Your prediction is going to be like a battle axe emoji and a fire hydrant, or like an alarm or something like that.
No,
it's not even going to be numbers.
It's more of the emoji.
Yeah.
More of that. So where are you going prediction-wise? Where are you thinking?
Big Show here on the YouTube channel says this is a very winnable game. I don't necessarily agree with it for this team in this moment, but as much as I spent the last the last 90 minutes talking about all the things that Iowa does and the Iowa way of being. Mm-hmm. They're a tough team, but they are not a college football playoff team. Like, this is a beatable team.
Yes.
So I think Penn State's going to score some points. I think it's going to be a close game. There is a potential for this team to get blown out. Like, that is a potential tonight. But I'm going 23-20 Iowa, and I think that just like starting a young quarterback and the defensive line, that matchup really, I don't see a fix. I don't see anything that is going to make me think that it's going to be better this week. They'll get off the field. If that does, then Penn State's got a chance to win this game for sure.
They have a chance to win the game if things go right, but today things have only gotten worse today.
Yeah.
With Vega Ioane now out for the game. So I know I've been really confident in the Mr. Positivity here on the show every week. That's gone.
That was a bummer.
We
didn't even make it to Halloween.
No, we didn't make it to Halloween. My brain thinks 27 Iowa, 13 for Penn State. I just don't think there's enough for this Penn State offense to get going. And if there's one thing you could rely on Penn State right now wise, it's the kicker. But if it's windy, which is going to be about 10-mile-an-hour winds in general in this game, it's only going to make it more difficult for Ryan Barker.
Yeah.
So the one piece of this game that's been good for Penn State, they're kicking and punting. Those balls are going to go up in the air from Gabe Wosu, and they're going to swirl.
Yeah.
So, it could be a bad special teams game at this point. I don't really know.
Yeah, and so luckily, early in the week we had the early reports it was going to be up to 25, 20 miles an hour. So it's going to be a little bit breezy. The last thing I saw was around 14 miles an hour. And again, these are all predictions. These aren't necessarily like it's going to, might get to 17. 14 and 17 aren't that far apart.
We don't control the weather.
So it's going to be breezy. But we were talking in the break, Ethan Grunkemeyer has a strong arm. He is a confident quarterback. I think he's aggressive, and he's an accurate person. Now, in the rain and the wind, maybe he throws some incompletions or interceptions. I know his very first pass in college was an interception because it threw behind the guy. It's not what I'm saying is it's not like he's never going to incomplete a pass, but on average, what I've seen from him is he throws a catchable ball, and he is usually generally precise with the football. We'll see if they can build some things around him. One thing I'm interested to see if they use is the middle of the field better with him, because he's very good at RPO and quick play action passes. That means you have to get your hips from one side to the other and throw the ball quickly. I think you can get the ball out quick and be accurate with it.
Well, let us know your predictions over on social media or here on the Blue Illustrated YouTube channel as well. That'll wrap it up for myself, Kyle F., with Thomas Frank Carr here at Legends Restaurant and Bar at the Penn State Hotel and Conference Center. We have been joined with you all day long here on 99.5, 107.5 The Bus, Bigfoot Country Legends, 103.7, 104.3, and on the Blue Illustrated YouTube channel as well. Steve Jones, Jack Ham are on the way before the game begins, 7 p.m. Penn State, Iowa in Iowa City.